morning of June 23, 1985, Air India Flight 182 prepared for its long journey from Toronto to Bombay, now Mumbai, with planned stops in Montreal and London. The aircraft, a Boeing 747 named Emperor Kanishk, carried 329 people on board, passengers and crew alike, most of them of Indian origin. For many, this was a routine flight across the Atlantic, a bridge between homes old and new. The check-in counters at Toronto Pearson International Airport bustled with life families saying their goodbyes, friends embracing, and young children tugging at their parent hands. For some passengers, it was a long-awaited vacation. For others, a return to ancestral roots. Behind the scenes, the airline crew conducted pre-flight checks, weather reviews, and briefings, unaware of the doom that lay ahead. Nothing in the air betrayed the horror to come. At 7:14 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, while cruising at 31,000 feet off the coast of Ireland, the aircraft disappeared from radar. There was no distress call. Moments later, debris began falling into the Atlantic Ocean. The serene sky had become the site of the worst act of aviation terrorism before September 11th. All 329 souls were lost. Radar controllers in Shannon, Ireland, watched in disbelief as the blip vanished without explanation. Military search and rescue operations were activated, and soon reports of floating wreckage came in. Pieces of the fuselage, seats, luggage, and bodies were strewn over hundreds of square miles. The mid-air explosion had torn through the aircraft with violence so extreme that survival was impossible. In a matter of seconds, the plane had been reduced to silence and sorrow. Back in Canada and India, families waited with increasing anxiety. The news trickled in. The plane had gone down. As hope gave way to despair, the scale of the tragedy sank in. Entire families had perished. Children, newlyweds, grandparents, none survived. The loss was not just personal but national, hitting the Indian diaspora in Canada with full force. Communities in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal gathered in temples, gurdwaras, and community centers. Grief was all-consuming. Photos of the victims were displayed in local newspapers and television broadcasts. The human toll was devastating. Whole classrooms lost students, companies lost employees, and neighborhoods lost neighbors. There were funerals without bodies and prayers with no closure. Investigators quickly suspected foul play. Evidence pointed to a bomb in a suitcase loaded at Vancouver. A nearly simultaneous explosion at Tokyo's Narita Airport, also from a suitcase intended for another Air India flight, confirmed the chilling strategy: twin attacks. The culprits were soon identified as Sikh extremists seeking revenge for the 1984 Indian Army operation at the Golden Temple. A deeper investigation revealed how the plan had been methodically orchestrated. The explosive device, concealed in a suitcase, was programmed to detonate mid-flight. The plot relied on the exploitation of lax airport security, particularly concerning unaccompanied baggage. The Narita blast, which killed 2 Japanese baggage handlers, exposed the full extent of conspiracy. Authorities zeroed in on a group of individuals in British Columbia, including Talwinder Singh Parmar, considered the mastermind. Shockingly, intelligence agencies in Canada and elsewhere had received warnings. Reports of suspicious individuals and activities had been filed. Wiretaps existed. Yet, a combination of bureaucratic inertia, cultural misunderstandings, and systemic racism meant the dots were never connected in time. CSI's Canadian Security Intelligence Service had monitored several suspects, including Parmar and Inderjit Singh Riat, months before the bombing. Intercepts captured conversations hinting at an attack, but the information was never fully acted upon. RCMP and CSI's, 2 key agencies, often fail to share crucial intelligence. The tragedy laid bare the institutional blind spots and underscored how preconceived notions about ethnic communities allowed the threat to go unheeded. Recovery efforts in the Atlantic were monumental. Bodies and wreckage were painstakingly brought to shore. Investigators worked tirelessly, piecing together the explosion's point of origin. Black boxes were recovered. The scene told a story of sudden, catastrophic failure, one that left no chance for survival. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, along with international agencies, began analyzing evidence pulled from the ocean floor. Specialists reconstructed parts of the aircraft, studying the blast patterns. The explosive residue was matched to components used in Riyadh's home in British Columbia. It became evident that the bomb had been placed in the forward cargo hold. Forensic science, although advancing, struggled against the vast scope of the disaster. Years passed. Trials ensued. Only one man, Inderjit Singh Riyad, was convicted in relation to the bombing, largely for perjury. Others walked free. Witnesses were intimidated. Evidence was lost or deemed inadmissible. The Canadian justice system struggled with the magnitude and complexity of the case. The courtroom battles were marred by delays and legal challenges. Key witnesses changed testimonies, and many were fearful for their safety. Public frustration grew as justice seemed increasingly out of reach. When Ripudman Singh Malik and Ajay Singh Bugri were acquitted in 2005, citing lack of evidence, families of the victims reacted with outrage. The verdict was a gut punch to a grieving community already battered by decades of inaction. The Indo-Canadian community mourned not only its dead, but also the lack of recognition and justice. For years, the bombing was not fully acknowledged as a Canadian tragedy. Despite the majority of victims being Canadian citizens, memorials were erected, but wounds remained fresh. Community leaders held vigils, cultural events, and annual remembrance ceremonies to ensure the victims were not forgotten. The lack of initial governmental acknowledgement felt like a betrayal. Many survivors and relatives of the deceased spoke of feeling invisible in a country they called home. The tragedy became a symbol of marginalization, spurring a movement for equality and inclusion in Canada's multicultural narrative. In 2006, the Canadian government ordered a public inquiry. Justice John Major's report in 2010 was scathing. It condemned failures at every level of government. Apologies were issued, compensation was paid, but the sense of abandonment lingered. The report became a testament to what happens when communities are ignored. The inquiry heard from families, officials, and intelligence operatives. It revealed a landscape of miscommunication, negligence, and missed opportunities. Prime Minister Stephen Harper delivered a formal apology, and funds were established to support victims' families. Yet, beyond reparations, the report ignited a national conversation about civil rights, government accountability, and the treatment of ethnic minorities in national security matters. Today, the legacy of Flight 182 lives on through remembrance and reform. Security protocols have evolved. Interagency communication has improved. Yet, the memory of that day, a plane exploding midair, families torn apart, a nation waking up too late, continues to serve as a grim reminder of the price of complacency. The names of 329 victims remain etched in memorials and in the conscience of a nation that vowed never again. Educational initiatives now include Air India Flight 182 and history curricula. The annual National Day of Remembrance ensures the victims' stories are passed on to future generations. Aviation security has been transformed by the lessons of 1985. Still, the tragedy endures as a call to vigilance, empathy, and the urgent need for inclusive justice. Flight 182's story is not only one of terror and loss. It is one of resilience, remembrance, and the unyielding pursuit of truth.